Hi, welcome to this Corbettmaths video. In this video, we're going to look at the video solutions to the Corbettmaths Practice Questions on List and Outcomes. If you need any extra help on List and Outcomes, if you go to Corbettmaths and go to the Videos and Worksheet section and scroll down to video number 253, there's a dedicated video tutorial there on List and Outcomes. Alternatively, you can scan this QR code. But in this video, we're going to focus on the video solutions to the practice questions, so let's get started. Okay, question number one. Question number one says a bag contains a green bead, a white bead, and a purple bead, and a coin can land on tails or heads. And a bead is chosen at random from the bag and the coin is flipped. And one of the outcomes that is possible is a green bead and a tail. And we've been asked to list all the above possible outcomes. Okay, so let's work through these. So whenever you're doing questions like this, it's quite important that you work systematically. So we've done green bead and a tail. The next one that I think would be logical would be a green bead and a head, working systematically, not just jumping around and going, so we've done a green and a tail, let's then go to a purple and a head. Let's work through in order. So we've done all the green beads, a green bead and a tail, and a green bead and a head. Now let's consider the white beads. We could get a white bead and a tail, so a white bead and a tail. We could get a white bead and a head, so white bead and a head. And then finally the purple beads. We could get a purple bead and a tail, so purple bead and a tail. And then finally a purple bead and a head, so a purple bead and a head. And that's it. That's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 outcomes. So that's it. They're all the possible outcomes. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 2. So question number 2 says Molly visits a restaurant with her friends and this is the menu. So she's got a choice of either soup, prawn cocktail and melon as a starter. And in terms of the main, she can choose chicken, beef or pizza. And Molly chooses one of the starters and one of the mains. And we've been asked to list all the possible combinations. So I'm going to do shorthand here. Rather than writing soup and chicken and soup and beef and so on, I'm going to write down SC, SB, SP and so on. So she could have soup and chicken. She could have soup and beef, and she could have soup and pizza. So they're all the options that Molly could have with soup at the beginning, as far as a starter. And then in terms of prawn cocktail, she could have prawn cocktail and chicken, prawn cocktail and beef, and then prawn cocktail and pizza. So I've just worked through the options with soup and prawn cocktail, and you notice we're working through systematically. So we're going through in a logical order. We're not jumping around whenever we're choosing our options. And then finally melon. So we could have a melon. So Molly could have a melon and chicken. She could have the melon and beef. And finally, she could have melon and pizza, melon and pizza. And then the 9 possible outcomes and the 9 possible combinations. And that's it. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 3. Okay, so let's have a look at our next question, question number 3. So question number 3 says, Mickey goes to a coffee shop and he chooses one drink and one snack. So these are the choices for the drink. He can choose tea, coffee and juice. And then in terms of the snack, he can choose a muffin, a brownie, crisps or pastry. And we've been asked to write down all the possible combinations. So in terms of Mickey, he could choose tea as his drink and then he could have a muffin, so tea and muffin. He could choose tea and brownie, so tea and brownie. Tea and crisps. And then finally, tea and pastry. So they're all the options with tea as his drink. Now we're going to work through the options with coffee. So you could have coffee and a muffin, coffee and brownie, coffee and crisps, and coffee and pastry. And then finally, in terms of juice, he could have juice and a muffin. He could have juice and a brownie. He could have juice and crisps. And finally, he could have juice and a pastry. So they're all his possible options. And that's it. So that's question number 3. Let's have a look at question number 4. So question number 4 says, Orla has 4 types of vegetable. So she has peas, carrots, turnip and spinach. And she's going to choose 2 different types of vegetable. So she's going to choose 2 different types of vegetable. And we've been asked to write down all the possible combinations of vegetable she can choose. Okay, so she's going to choose 2 of these and they've got to be different. So she can't choose peas and then extra peas. It's going to be like peas and carrots and then peas and turnip and peas and spinach. So we've done all the options with peas. Then carrots and turnip and carrots and spinach. I'm not going to say carrots and peas because peas and carrots and peas would be the same. So just to go through that again, she could have peas and carrots, peas and turnip and peas and spinach. She could have carrots and turnip and carrots and spinach, and finally turnip and spinach. So they're all the options that she could have. And in terms of this one, peas and carrots would be the same as carrots and peas, so we're not going to write that option down twice. Okay, so she could have peas and carrots. She could have peas and turnip, and she could have peas and spinach. So they're all the options with peas. Now let's look at the options with carrots. She could have carrots and turnip, and carrots and spinach. And finally, she could have turnip and spinach, so turnip and spinach. And we're not going to do the options such as carrots and peas and turnips and carrots because we've already got them already in the list. And that's it. So there are all the possible combinations of vegetables she can choose. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 5. So question number 5, we're told there's 2 bags. There's bag 1 and bag 2. In bag 1, there's a red counter, a green counter, and a pink counter. And in bag 2, there's a blue counter, a yellow counter, and a red counter. And the question says, Rob's going to take a counter at random from bag 1 and a counter at random from bag 2. And we've been asked to list all the possible combinations of counters that Rob can take. So he could take a red and a blue, so red and a blue, red and blue. A red and a yellow, so red and yellow. And then a red and a red, a red and a red. So they're all the options where he gets a red from bag 1 first. Now let's consider if he gets a green from bag 1. So it could be a green and a blue, a green and a yellow, a green and a yellow, and then finally a green and a red, so green and a red. And then if he picks a pink from bag 1 first, it could be pink and blue, so pink and blue, pink and yellow, and finally pink and red. So there are all the possible combinations of counters that Rob could take. And then the question says, find the probability that Rob takes 2 counters that are the same colour. So we're looking for the same colour. So let's go through the lists. Red and blue, red and yellow, red and red, there's one option. Pink and blue, pink and yellow, pink and red, no. Green and blue, green and yellow, green and red. So there's only one option out of the 9 where they're the same colour. So it's going to be 1 out of 9, so 1 over 9 or 1/9. So the probability that Rob picks 2 counters that are the same colour is 1/9, and that's it. Okay, let's look at question number 6. So Magnus flips a fair coin once and rolls an ordinary dice once. So we've got an ordinary 6-sided dice and a fair coin, a normal fair coin. And we've been asked to list all the possible outcomes. So let's deal with the coin to begin with. He could get a head, and then he could get a 1 on the dice. He could get a head, and he could get a 2 on the dice. A head and a 3, a head and a 4, a head and a 5, and a head and a 6. So there's the possible options in terms of if he gets a head on the coin to begin with. Now, what if he gets a tail first? So he could get a tail and a 1, a tail and a 2, a tail and a 3, a tail and a 4, a tail and a 5, and a tail and a 6. So there's the 12 possible outcomes. And part B says, find the probability that Magnus gets a head and a 3, so a head and a 3, so that's 1 out of 12, so that's going to be 1/12, so that's the probability, 1/12. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 7. So question number 7 says 2 coins are flipped, so 2 normal coins are flipped, and we've been asked to list all the possible outcomes and use T for tails and H for heads. Okay, so let's consider the first coin to begin with. So the first coin, he could get a tail on the first coin, and he could also get a tail on the second coin. He could get a tail on the first coin, but then he could get a head on the second coin. So they're all the options where he gets tails for the first coin. Now let's consider the options where he gets a head on the first coin. So he could get a head and a tail, and a head and a head. So there's 4 possible options. There's a tail and a tail and a head and a tail, and a head and a head. So that's it. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 8. So question number 8 says, Muhammad flips a fair coin and rolls a fair dice, and we've been asked to list the possible combinations. So he flips a fair coin, so he could get a head or a tail, and then he rolls a dice, so it could be a head and a 1, a head and a 2, a head and a 3, a head and a 4, a head and a 5, and a head and a 6. There are all the options with a head on the coin, and then we've got all the options for the dice. And then in terms of if he gets a tail on the coin, it would be a tail and a 1, a tail and a 2, a tail and a 3, a tail and a 4, a tail and a 5, and a tail and a 6. So there's 12 possible combinations. And then we've been asked to find the probability that Muhammad gets a tail and a prime number. So we're looking for prime numbers that go up to 6. So the prime numbers are 2, 3, 5, 7. Well, that's not going to be one of them. So we're looking for a 2, a 3, and a 5. They're the prime numbers between 1 and 6, including 1 and 6. So 2, 3, and 5. So a tail and a prime number. So a tail and a 2, a tail and a 3, and a tail and a 5. So it's going to be 3 out of 12 possible outcomes. So it's going to be 3 out of 12, so 3/12. Or if we cancel that down and divide both of those numbers by 3, we get that's equal to a quarter. So the probability would be a quarter. If you wrote 3/12, that's fine as well. You don't have to cancel it down. The question didn't tell you to cancel it down, but I probably would and write down 1/4, and that's it. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 9. So question number 9 says, William is going to attend a 2-day summer camp at his local leisure centre, and he can take part in one activity on a Monday and one activity on a Tuesday. And the question says to list all the possible combinations of activity that he can take part in. Okay, so he could do golf, and then he could do ice skating. So I'm just going to do G for golf and I for ice skating. He could do golf on a Monday and then swimming on a Tuesday. He could do golf and then he could do dodgeball. And then he could do golf and basketball. So golf and basketball. So there are all the options with golf. Now let's consider football. So he could do football and ice skating, football and swimming, football and dodgeball, and finally football and basketball. So there are all the options with football on a Monday. Now in terms of rugby, he could do rugby and ice skating, rugby and swimming, rugby and dodgeball, and rugby and basketball. So they're all the options that have rugby on a Monday. And then in terms of hockey, he could do hockey and then ice skating, hockey and then swimming, hockey and then dodgeball, and then hockey and then basketball. So they're all the possible combinations of activities that he could do. And that's it. Okay, let's look at the next question, question number 10. So question number 10 says, Mark is going to visit 3 different friends, Adam, Laura and Thomas. Complete the list to show the possible orders that he could visit them in. Now, if we think back to the question earlier whenever we looked at Orla with her vegetables, with the vegetables, we wrote down perhaps peas and carrots, but we didn't write down carrots and peas because, if they're on the plate, the peas and carrots would be the same as carrots and peas. But here he's going to visit 3 friends, and it's also the order that he visits them in. So, for instance, he could visit Adam, then Laura, or Laura, then Adam, and they're quite important whenever we're looking at the possible orders that he visits his friends in. So he could visit Adam first, and then he would be left with Laura and Thomas. So he could do Adam and then Laura and then Thomas, or he could do Adam, then Thomas, then Laura. So they're the options that have been done for us. Now let's consider the options if he visits Laura first. So it could be Laura, and then he could visit Adam and then Thomas, or he could do Laura first and then Thomas and then Adam. So these two could be in either order. And then finally he could visit Thomas first, and then he could visit Adam and then Laura, or it could be Thomas and then Laura and then Adam, just the other way around. So they're the possible orders that he could visit his friends in. And that's it. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 11. So question number 11 says, a rugby team say a code before throwing the ball in a line out. And the code is a positive number below 20, followed by a colour. And the number is a square number. And the colour is either red, green or blue. And we've been asked to write down all the codes that the rugby team could say. So let's consider the number is below 20 and it's a square number. So the square numbers below 20 would be 1, because 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 3 is 9. And 4 times 4 is 16. 5 times 5 is 25, and that's not below 20. So the square numbers below 20 are 1, 4, 9 and 16. And then there's a colour, which is red, green or blue. So there's a number and then a colour. So we could have a 1 and then a red, 1 and then a green, 1 and then a blue. We could have 4 and then red, 4 and then green, 4 and then blue. And then we could have a 9 and a red, 9 and a green, 9 and a blue, and finally we could have 16 and red, 16 and green, and 16 and blue. And that's it. So they're all the possible outcomes. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 12. So question number 12 says, the Logan family are planning their next 2 holidays, and the possible destinations are France, Spain, Portugal and Turkey. And the 2 destinations can be the same or different, so they might go to the same country twice. And we've been asked to list all the possible options for the 2 destinations. So they could go to France and then France again. They could go to France and then Spain. They could go to France and then Portugal. And they could also go to France and then Turkey. So they're the possible destinations they can go to if they go to France first. Then they could go to Spain and then France. Spain and then Spain. Spain and Portugal and Spain and Turkey. So Spain and Portugal and Spain and Turkey. So they're all the destinations that they could go to if they go to Spain first. So we've done all the pairs of destinations if they go to France first and all the pairs of destinations if they go to Spain first. Now let's consider Portugal. So you could go to Portugal and then France, Portugal and then Spain, Portugal and then Portugal and Turkey. So let's write those down. Portugal and France, Portugal and Spain, Portugal and Portugal and Portugal and Turkey. So there are all those options. Now let's consider Turkey. So the Logan family could go to Turkey and then France, Turkey and then Spain, Turkey and Portugal and Turkey and Turkey. So let's write those down. Turkey and France, Turkey and Spain, Turkey and Portugal and Turkey and Turkey. And that's it. So there are all the possible options for the 2 destinations for the next 2 holidays. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 13. So question number 13 says there's 4 rides at a fun fair, and they're bumper cars, waltzers, roller coaster and carousel. And Camel is going to go on each ride once. So he's going to go on each ride once. And he's going to go on the roller coaster last. So he's going to keep the roller coaster last. And we've been asked to list all the possible orders in which he can go on the 4 rides. Okay, so he's going to go on all of these rides once, but he's going to go on the roller coaster last. Okay, so he could go on bumper cars, and then he could go on the waltzer, and then he could go in the carousel, and then finally the roller coaster. He could go on the bumper cars first, but then do the carousel and waltzer the other way around, so carousel and waltzer, and still roller coaster at the end. And they're all the options that he could go on if he goes on the bumper cars first. He could go on the bumper cars, and then the waltzer and the carousel, or the carousel and then the waltzer, and then both of them are followed by the roller coaster. Okay, now let's consider if he goes on the waltzer first. If he goes on the waltzer first, he could then do the bumper cars and the carousel, so the bumper cars and then the carousel, and then followed by the roller coaster. Or you could do the bumper cars and the carousel in the other order, so you could go on the waltzer first, and then the carousel, and then the bumper cars, and then the roller coaster. So they're the possible options if he goes on the waltzer first. Now he can't do the roller coaster first because he's doing that last, so finally let's look at the carousel. Camel could go on the carousel first, and then the bumper cars, and then the bumper cars, and then the waltzer, and then the roller coaster at the end. Or he could do the bumper cars and the waltzer in the other order, so it could be carousel, and then it could be the waltzer, and then the bumper cars, and then finally the roller coaster. So that's it. So they're all the possible orders in which he could go on the 4 rides, and all of them have the roller coaster last. And so really we just needed to order the bumper car, waltzer and carousel into the 6 possible options in terms of where they could go. So it could be bumper car, waltzer, carousel, bumper car, carousel, waltzer, waltzer, bumper cars, carousel, waltzer, carousel, bumper cars, carousel, bumper cars, waltzer, and finally the carousel, waltzer and bumper cars, and all of them are followed by the roller coaster at the end. And that's it. So let's have a look at our next question, question number 14. So question number 14, Sarah's made up a game for a school fair to raise money for charity. And there's 2 boxes with counters in them. So we've got box 1 with the counters 4, 5 and 8, and box 2 with the counters 5, 1, 2 and 3. And we're told that the person playing the game will select a counter at random from box 1, and then they will select a counter at random from box 2. And we're to write down all the possible combinations of counters picked. So the person could pick a 4 first, and then they could pick a 5, a 1, a 2 or 3. So a 4 and a 5, a 4 and a 1, a 4 and a 2, and a 4 and a 3. So there are all the options with 4 being the first counter. She could pick a 5 first, and then it could be a 5 and a 5, a 5 and a 1, a 5 and a 2, a 5 and a 3. So a 5 and a 5, a 5 and a 1, a 5 and a 2, and finally a 5 and a 3, and finally an 8. The person could pick an 8 first, and then a 5, an 8 and then a 1, an 8 and then a 2, and then finally an 8 and then a 3. And so they're all the possible combinations of counters picked. And then we're told the person playing the game wins whenever the number adds up to 10. And then during the school fair, the game is played 240 times. And the game costs £1 to play, and each prize costs £2.50, and we've been asked to work out how much money Sarah should raise for charity. So there's quite a lot of information there. So the person playing the game wins if the numbers add up to 10. Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 12. There's 12 possible outcomes. And how many add up to a 10? So no, 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 no. This one adds up to 10. No, 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 yes, no. So 2 out of the 12 options add up to be 10. So that's 2 out of 12. Or if we cancel that down, 1/6. So the probability of someone winning this game if they play it is 1/6. Okay, so let's come back to that in a minute. But that's the probability of winning 1/6 because there's 2 options out of the 12 that add together to be 10. So the probability of winning this game is 1 out of 6 or 1/6. Okay, now the game costs £1 to play and 240 people play it. So altogether, the money taken in is £240. That's how much money they take in to begin with. But we need to work out how much money is given out in prizes. So let's work out how many people should win. So if it's played 240 times, we need to work out a sixth of 240 because the probability of winning is a sixth. So if we do a sixth of 240, that'll tell us how many winners there should be. So a sixth of 240, so to find a sixth of a number, you just divide it by 6. So 24 divided by 6 is 4. So 240 divided by 6 would be 40. So there should be 40 winners. Now each prize costs £2.50. So if we on our calculator do 40 multiplied by £2.50, and that's equal to £100. So that means the prizes should cost £100. And so that means that if Sarah takes in £240 by people paying to play the game, and the prizes cost £100, if we take them away, that'll tell us how much money Sarah should raise for charity. And that's equal to £140. So that means that Sarah should raise £140 for charity. Now maybe slightly less or maybe slightly more, depending on how many winners there are, but that's how much money she should expect to raise for charity. Okay, let's look at the next question. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 15. So question number 15 says, Megan is going to have a meal with her friends, and she's going to choose 1 starter, 1 main, and 1 dessert. And this is the menu, and it's got the prices as well. And then if we scroll down, Megan's got £15, and we've been asked to list all the possible combinations that Megan can afford. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to figure out which ones she can afford. Now, it's a calculator question, so that's quite nice. So we can add them up on the calculator and see if they are £15 or less. So let's start off with soup and chicken. So if Megan had soup and chicken, if we do £2.50 plus £6.25, that's equal to £8.75. Now, in terms of the desserts, the most expensive dessert is eat a mess, which is £4.50. So if we add £4.50 onto that, that's equal to £13.25. So that's much lower than the £15 that Megan has. So that means that Megan can afford all the options that have soup and chicken. So she could have soup, chicken and trifle, soup, chicken and brownie, and soup, chicken and eat a mess. Because if she can buy soup and chicken and the most expensive dessert, then she can buy all of the options. So you could have soup, chicken and trifle, soup, chicken and brownie, and soup, chicken and eat a mess. Okay, now let's consider soup, beef and trifle, soup, beef and brownie, and soup, beef and eat a mess. So let's consider soup and beef. Soup and beef, if we add them together, £2.50 and £8 is £10.50. And £4.50, if you add that on, the most expensive dessert, that's equal to £15. So that means she can afford soup, beef and eat a mess. And if she can afford the most expensive dessert, she can afford the others as well. So that means that Megan can afford soup, beef and trifle, soup, beef and brownie, and soup, beef and eat a mess. Because if she can afford soup, beef and the most expensive dessert, she can afford all of them. Okay, now let's have a look at pork. Now pork is cheaper than beef, and that means that if pork is cheaper than beef, and if she can afford the soup, beef and all of the options, she can definitely afford the soup, pork and all of the options. So that means she can afford soup, pork and trifle, soup, pork and brownie, and soup, pork and eat a mess. So let's write that down. Soup, pork and trifle, soup, pork and brownie, and soup, pork and eat a mess. Okay, so there are all the options involving soup, and soup was the cheapest starter. So now we're going to go for prawns, which is the most expensive starter. So we might find there's less options. It's affordable now. So let's have a look at prawn, chicken and the options. So prawns are £4.25. So if we take the prawns, which is £4.25, and add on £6.25, that's equal to £10.50 again. And that means that she can actually afford all of the desserts. So it means that Megan can have prawn, chicken and trifle, prawns, chicken and brownie, and prawns, chicken and eat a mess. So let's write those down. Prawns, chicken and trifle, prawns, chicken and brownie, and prawns, chicken and eat a mess. So there are all the options with prawns and chicken. Now we're going for a more expensive option, which is prawns and beef. So prawns and beef, we've got £4.25 and £8 now. So if we add them together, we get £4.25 plus £8 is equal to £12.25. Now the cheapest dessert is a trifle, which is £3.50, and if we add £3.50 onto that, we get that's equal to £15.75. So that means that she cannot afford prawns, beef and any dessert. So there's no prawns and beef. That's not an option for Megan. Okay, prawns and pork. So prawns, which is £4.25, plus pork, which is £7.50, is equal to £11.75. Now let's add on the cheapest dessert, which is £3.50. So plus £3.50 is equal to £15.25. So she can't afford prawns, pork and trifle, or prawns, pork and brownie, or prawns, pork and eat a mess. So she can't have prawns and beef or prawns and pork because she hasn't got enough money. Okay, now let's have a look at the melon. So melon and chicken. So melon and chicken is £3.50 plus £6.25. That's equal to £9.75. Now the most expensive dessert is the eat a mess, which is £4.50, and she can afford that. She can afford that because if we do £9.75 plus £4.50, it's less than £15. So that means she can have melon, chicken and all of these. So let's write that down. Melon, chicken and trifle, melon, chicken and brownie, melon, chicken and eat a mess. Okay, now let's have a look at the melon and beef. So that's £3.50 plus £8, that's equal to £11.50. Now she can only afford the trifle here because that's £3.50, and if we have £11.50 and £3.50, that's £15. So she can have melon, beef and trifle, but she can't afford the other desserts. So it's going to be MBT, so MBT. And then finally we've done the melon and beef, so she can only have one dessert with that. The pork's a bit cheaper, so maybe she might be able to afford some more desserts here. So that would be £3.50 plus £7.50 is equal to £11. That means she's got £4 left. So that means she can afford the trifle and the brownie, but not the eat a mess. She can have melon, pork and trifle, and melon, pork and brownie. And that's it. So they would be the possible combinations that Megan can afford. And that's it. They're all the options that Megan can afford. Okay, let's look at our next question. So question number 16 says, in a game, a player picks a marble at random from 2 tubs. There's 4 marbles in tub 1 and 5 marbles in tub 2. And if a player picks at least 1 green marble, they win the game. Work out the probability that the player wins the game. Okay, so let's list all the possible outcomes. Okay, so the first marble from tub 1 could be green. And let's consider what the second marble could be. So it could be yellow, it could be green and then pink, it could be green and then red, it could be green and then orange, and green and then green. So there are all the options with green being the first marble. Okay, if it was blue being the first marble from tub 1, we could have blue and then yellow, blue and then pink, blue and then red, blue and then orange, and then blue and then green. So there are all the options with blue being the first marble. And then we're just going to repeat this for red and then white. So it could be red and then yellow, red and then pink, red and then red, red and orange, and red and green. And finally, if it's a white marble, first it would be white. It could be white and then yellow, white and then pink, white and then red, white and orange, and white and green. So they're all the possible options. Now we're told that if a player picks at least 1 green marble, they win the game, and we need to work out the probability the player wins the game. So altogether there's 5, 10, 15, 20 possible combinations. So there's 20, that's going to be on the denominator, so it's something out of 20. And let's figure out how many have green. So how many outcomes would be a winning outcome? So that would be a winning outcome. It's got green. So with that one, that one, that one, and that one, that would be a winning one, that would be a winning one, and that would be a winning one. Any more greens? No. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's 8 out of 20, 8 20ths. And if we cancel that down, we don't have to, but let's cancel down, that'd be 4 out of 10. If we cancel down again, 2/5. So the probability of winning the game would be 2/5, and that's it. Okay, let's have a look at our last question. So question number 17 says, Freya uses a 4-digit code for her debit card, and she uses only digits greater than 3, so she's not going to use a 0, a 1, or 2, so she's going to use digits that are greater than 3. She's not using those, so she's going to use or 3, so she's going to choose a 4, a 5, a 6, a 7, an 8, or 9. So they're the digits she's going to use. And the first digit is odd. So the first digit is odd, so it's either a 5, a 7, or a 9. The second and third digits are the same, so they could be 44, 55, 66, 77, 88, and 99. And the fourth digit is a square number, so the square numbers are 1 times 1, no, 2 times 2 is 4, and 3 times 3 is 9, so it's a 4 or a 9. So we know that the first digit is odd, so that's either a 5, a 7, or a 9. The second and third digits are the same, so that would be a 44, 55, 66, 77, 88, and 99. And finally, the last digit is a square number, so that's either a 4 or a 9. So we need to list all the different 4-digit codes that follow these rules. So let's write them down. So let's start off with the ones beginning with 5. So it could be a 5 and then a 44. So a 5 and then a 44 with a 4 at the end. A 5 with a 44 and then a 9 on the end. A 5 and then followed by a 55 and a 4 and a 55 and a 9 and so on. So a 55 and then a 4. A 5 with a 55 and a 9. So they're the options with a 5 and a 44 and a 55. We now need to do this with 66, 77, 88, and 99, and each of them with a 4 or a 9 after it. So I'm just going to list all of those now. So these are all the possible PIN codes with a 5 at the beginning. So there's a 5 and then a 44 and a 4, a 5, a 44 and a 9, a 5, a 55 and a 4, a 5, a 55 and a 9, 66 and a 4, 66 and a 9, 77 and a 4, 77 and a 9, 88 and 4, 88 and 9, 99 and 4, 99 and 9. So they're all the ones with beginning with 5. Now we need to repeat that for the digits 7 and 9. So there's going to be a 7 followed by a 44 and a 4, a 7 followed by a 44 and a 9. So it's going to be all of these options, but changing the first digit from a 5 to a 7. So I'm just going to list all those now. Okay, so they're all the options with a 7 at the front. And now, because we were told the first digit was odd, we're now going to have a 9 at the front, and that could be a 44 and a 4, a 44 and a 9 and a 55 and a 4, 55 and a 9, and so on. So it's going to be all the same as so it's going to be the same as these options and these options, but rather than having a 5 or a 7 at the front, we're going to have a 9 at the front. So let's do that. And that's it. Now, in terms of this question, whenever you've got a question like this and there's lots of different possible outcomes, it could be quite useful to just check you've got it right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count the number of options in each column because they should all be the same. So let's check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Because I may have missed one. And I just have a look through them. Yep, and that's it. So there are all the possible 4-digit codes that would follow those rules. And that's it. So these have been the video solutions to the Corbettmaths Practice Questions on List and Outcomes. I really hope you found this video useful. And if you have found it useful, please like it and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you need any extra help on List and Outcomes, if you go to Corbettmaths and go to the videos and worksheet section and scroll down to video number 253, there's a dedicated video tutorial there on List and Outcomes. But again, I really hope you found this video useful. And if you have found it useful, please like this video and please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.